አደባባይ ሚዲያ ለወገንተኝነት ጀርባውን የሰጠ ጊዜያዊ ጥቅምን አምቢኝ ብለው የዘመመን ሊያቀና እውነትና ዕውቀትን አስከትሎ ኢኮኖሚያዊና መንፈሳዊ መረጃዎችን እንካችሁ ይላል። ትኩስ ዜናዎች፣ ዘጋቢ ፊልሞች፣ ጥልቅ ትንታኔዎች በአደባባይ ሚዲያ ይቀርባሉ። ራእያችን ጊዜውን ያማከለና ዘመኑን የዋጀ በእውነት የነጠሩ መረጃዎችን በእውቀት ደግፎ ለሀገራችን ብሎ ለዓለም ሕዝብ ማዳረስ ነው። አድሬሳችን አደባባይ info@gmail.com፣ ዌብሳይታችን www.adebabai.com። ያግኙን፣ ይርዱን። የሁላችንም ስለሆነች ኢትዮጵያ በአደባባይ እንዘግባለን። አደባባይ ሚዲያ።
Welcome everyone. It is really great to be with you all again after a long time here at Viewers Digest. Adebabay Media English program has been a long back that we were together, but now we are back with a new season, and just in a week we're about to celebrate, or we're about to hold a new year, the Ethiopian New Year 2014. So we have a lot in stock for you, and it's the same thing today. We will be talking about United States foreign policy in Ethiopia. We have a really great guest for you. I understand it's been a while that we had held an English program, but please help us share this program and be with us as we contemplate and talk about current issues, current events here in the United States and abroad in Ethiopia. And we would like you to be part of it today. ወንድሞችና እህቶች የአደባባይ ሚዲያ አባላት እስከዚህ ሰዓት ድረስ ያደረሰን አምላካችን እግዚአብሔር የተመሰገነ ይሁን። እንደምን ዋላችሁ? ከብዙ ጊዜ በኋላ የእንግሊዘኛ ፕሮግራማችንን ዛሬ እንጀምራለን። እንደምታውቁት ደግሞ አደባባይ ሚዲያ አብዛኛው የአደባባይ ሚዲያ ተከታታይ ቤተሰቦቻችን የመጀመሪያ አማርኛ ቋንቋ ተናጋሪዎች በመሆናቸው የተነሳ ብዙ ጊዜ የእንግሊዘኛ ፕሮግራማችን እንደፈለግነው ያህል ገና አላደገም ወይም ደግሞ እያደገ ይገኛል። ለዚህ ትብብር ግን የናንተ ትብብር እንደሚያስፈልገን በጥሞና ወይም ላመለክት ፈልጋለሁ። በርግጥ ይገባናል፣ ሁላችንም እንግሊዘኛ ቋንቋ ብናቀም የመጀመሪያ በምንግባባበት ቋንቋ ስለሆነ መወያየት የምንፈልገው ወይም ደግሞ አደባባይን ማየት ብንፈልግም በተለይ አሁን በዚህ ሰዓት በያዝነው ትላልቅ አጀንዳ በሀገር ጉዳይ ከውጭ ዓለማት ጋር ካለን ግንኙነት ጋር በፎረን ፖሊሲ በተለይ ከዩናይትድ ስቴትስ ጋር ባለን አሰጥገባ ጋር በዚህ ሰዓት በእንግሊዘኛ ቋንቋ ያለንን ችግር በዓለም አቀፍ መድረክ መናገር ለሀገራችን መቆም የሚያስፈልግበት ጊዜ ስለመጣ ይሄንን ፕሮግራም እናንተ እንኳን ባትከታተሉት ይሄን ሊከታተሉ ይችላሉ ለምትሉት አካላት ሼር በማድረጋችሁ ከኛ ጋር ስራውን እየሰራችሁ እንደሆነ እንድታውቁት እንፈልጋለን። ስለዚህ ልክ የአማርኛው ፕሮግራሙን ተከታትለን ሼር እያደረግን ላይክ እያደረግን ኢንጌጅ እያደረግን እንደምንከታተለው ይሄንንም ፕሮግራም በዚሁ እንድትከታተሉ እንጠይቃለን። ይሄ የምንነጋገረው ነገር በዓለም አቀፍ ደረጃ ላይ አነሰም በዛም ስለ ሀገራችን ሁላችንም እየጮህን ነውና እንዲሰማልን ስለምንፈልግ የእናንተ የራሳችሁን ድርሻ እንድትወጡ በትህትና እንጠይቃለን። በአማርኛም እንግሊዘኛም እያረግን እያጣፈጥን ዛሬ ትልቅ እንግዳም ይዘንላችሁ ቀርበናል። ላይክ እና ሼር በማድረግ እርዱን። መልካም
Let's go.
አደባባይ ሚዲያ ለወገንተኝነት ጀርባውን የሰጠ ጊዜያዊ ጥቅምን አምብኝ ብለው የዘመመን ሊያቀና እውነትና እውቀትን አስከትሎ ኢኮኖሚያዊና መንፈሳዊ መረጃዎችን እንካችሁ ይላል። ትኩስ ዜናዎች፣ ዘጋቢ ፊልሞች፣ ጥልቅ ትንታኔዎች በአደባባይ ሚዲያ ይቀርባሉ። ራእያችን ጊዜውን ያማከለና ዘመኑን የዋጀ በእውነት የነጠሩ መረጃዎችን በእውቀት ደግፎ ለሀገራችን ብሎም ለዓለም ሕዝብ ማዳረስ ነው። አድሬሳችን አደባባይ ኢንፎ ሚዲያ @gmail.com፣ በዌብሳይታችን www.adebabai.com። ያግኙን፣ ይርዱን። የሁላችንም ስለሆነች ኢትዮጵያ በአደባባይ እንዘግባለን። አደባባይ ሚዲያ።
Even though Ethiopia has been a strong ally of the United States since Menelik II, the United States of America in general has ignored Africa almost completely, especially after the late John F. Kennedy, who in his short years in office invited 14 heads of states from Africa, emphasizing the importance of having a good and strong relationship with African nations. After JFK, the United States, for reasons unknown, has either ignored or worse, at many occasions sided with dictators. Imagine, President Obama was the first sitting president to visit one of the strongest allies it has in the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia. That in by itself says a lot. Even if they do get involved, it's either too late, like Rwanda, or a wrong calculation, like Libya. All of a sudden, now that China is heavily involved in economically investing an enormous amount in Africa, which has its own implications and reasons for debate, feeling it is losing its power, America seems to be interested in Africa again. But its interest does not seem to align with the vision John F. Kennedy had for African nations in America. Today, along with Dr. Fissaha, my guest for today, we will be discussing Americans' foreign policy, particularly in Ethiopia, concerning to the Biden administration foreign policy, particularly in Ethiopia. Dr. Fissaha Yaqub, it's really great to be with you.
Happy to be here.
I believe it was about 3 or 4 days ago or a week ago, I followed through your conversation you had with Adebabay Media and Amharic. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot, and it's a great honor to have you in our English program today. For our viewers, it's been a while since we came back with Viewers Digest in English program, so we're going to try to do both English and Amharic. And as you know, it's very important that we have this discussion in English, especially for those that are still in good heart are trying to understand what's going on in the United States. It's important to have this conversation in English. Before we get to that, please introduce yourselves to our guests, our family.
Yes, as you said, I've been a couple times here to your table, and thank you so much again for inviting me. Happy to be here. My name is Fissaha, as you mentioned. I got beautiful kids, 3 boys and a girl. I'm happy, passionate about social justice, and particularly when it comes to the reading culture in back home. I'm just I like to see more libraries built in Ethiopia. Down the road, that's my passion, and and also involved in different activities. I'm a professor by profession, and this much is enough, and happy to be here.
Thank you, Dr. Fissaha. Good to be with you. Now, jumping into our conversation, before we get into foreign policy in Ethiopia, let us first talk about the Afghanistan current war, or what's going on in the issue in Afghanistan at this moment. The longest war America has ever fought, actually. Do you think the sudden pull of President Biden was a right move? We know that top generals and intelligence had warned President Trump, which Trump also tried to pull out, or we have to also pull in Bush as well. Like this whole war began with Bush. Bush even tried to end it. Obama tried to end it. Trump, and then now Biden. We wouldn't say successfully, but did pull out. But we got to put it out there that generals and intelligence had warned them not to pull out at this moment. Do you think it was a right move?
It's a very tough situation. As you said, they have to pull out somehow, some way, somehow. But the way they pull out is the biggest problem. So yes, this has been for 20 years, spending how many billions, trillions of dollars worth of equipment, environmental degradation, human lives, up to 70,000 people. I mean, troops from Afghanistan, 6,000 from US, and plus 40,000 civilians have been, died in this 20 years war, which is unwinnable war. They've come to terms in that sense, and they also say that they have achieved their goal, which is to kill Osama bin Laden at the time. But then the strategic way of leaving the space has become even created more debacle than they expected. And I think that is the biggest problem. And I think they have got that strategic error and then the miscalculation. I believe that is the biggest problem. But somehow they had to evacuate. But I think the way they left seemed to be problematic here, I think.
I agree with this. And don't you see that there's a lot of link to what happened in Iraq and Libya, where they start something. This is why it's difficult. It's difficult to frame this on Biden only, because it's been 4 presidents that's been dealing with this. But when we look at in general American foreign policy, especially within the last 40 years, beginning with Vietnam, they easily start a war. And then at the end, even when they pull out, it's worse than the time that they were in. Like, for example, Iraq. One of the reasons, by the way, that Barack Obama was elected was in terms of, I will end the Iraq war. The Iraq war was wrong. And majority of Americans and the world, of course, knows that it was right. It was wrong to invade Iraq, but that doesn't mean you just mess up a country and then just pull out. So even the way President Obama had pulled out, we ended up having ISIS and even worse for Iraq citizens after they pull out. Do you see the link like that? Like, what these things keep happening and with Afghanistan? And in terms of that, when do you think would be the right way to do it?
Yeah, this is again, it's a very serious question, because it's about foreign policy. It's about strategic move. Quite often, as you said, the American, foreign policy, as soon as they think their interest, the national interest is being affected, they go to war and look at the impact of war. Look at in Iraq what happened, the creation of ISIS again, and the how many people have been killed every other day, and the just deterioration of the community and whatnot. But at the end of the day, did they really achieve their goals? Even the reasoning to wage a war like that magnitude. It's really preposterous. For me, those actually in charge, it goes back to Chomsky argued that American president, had it been for if there is a true justice, they would have been actually convicted of war crimes. So those are the things people need to understand. Why do you start, first of all, a conflict that has just that could destroy countries at that magnitude? Second, we need to also look at the corporate companies who are profiting behind this. So when you look at this, all these things, it's a convoluted impact of that. Yes, there are some reasoning, but to create such kind of war and at the same time creating another power vacuum and mess and leaving, it's just so dangerous. For example, what they did now in Afghanistan, they went 20 years, after 20 years when they left. Now, the Taliban are even more stronger now, because they have acquired billion or $1 trillion worth of military equipment, including the Black Hawk helicopters that pretty much only a few countries have. So those are the things. When you look at that miscalculation of international foreign policy, that leads to this kind of disasters. Who's going to be accountable for the life lost? Who's going to be accountable for this kind of debacle? So those are the things we really need to look at when the power, like United States, EU, and other countries engage in this kind of magnitude. The disasters the destruction is too much to bear. But again, you come and you see this for democracy, for human rights, for this and that. It's all this convoluted aspect. So we need to really rethink our I mean, from American perspective, they need to really rethink the way they engage with other countries, distracting a sovereign nation, destroying and resulting in such massive problem into the world is really very dangerous, and I would say they really need to rethink that.
Exactly, Doctor. And it brings me to my next question. You kind of touched on it as well. The original reason that even the United States entered the war with Afghanistan was because Taliban gave shield to Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda, after they bombed, when they bombed or when they did the 9/11, when they committed the 9/11 attack, they used Taliban and Afghanistan as their base, right? And which is the reason that the United States intended to go to Afghanistan. Yeah. And it's been a long time that Al-Qaeda was defeated, and Taliban even there was even many negotiations that happened that Taliban will no longer even associate itself with Al-Qaeda no more, which should be the end of the war of the war at the moment, maybe first or second year. And I'm not saying this is easy to do, but that's where the mission should have stopped, right? About at least 18 years ago. So, but my question is, this is an honest question, and maybe we could even discuss this in Amarinya. How does a regime bombarded and destroyed for 20 years by the strongest military that the world has ever seen, the United States, not only survive, but take power in Afghanistan within days? How does that happen, honestly? And this is a debate we're having in my political science class that I'm taking. It's very interesting, and we're debating in this, and all of our questions. And the debate is between it's right to get out, to move out of Afghanistan, pull out of Afghanistan now, or we should wait a little bit. Which, if it was Ndaduro, Bihonoro, and I would be the one says, yeah, we should be done. We're out. But now, after what Biden has been doing to Ethiopia and how they're always miscalculating their situations and policy around the world, including Ethiopia, I am all against what Biden is doing. But my question is, Dr. Fissa, is there a way? Did the United States of America either lie to us, or how does someone be bombed and completely destroyed for 20 years and all of a sudden emerges as the leader in Afghanistan?
Well, that's, as you said, it's a very loaded question. In fact, the reasoning to go to war from the get-go, it's miscalculated. It's like, it is that miscalculation step. When you make a mistake, try to cover that mistake with more mistakes, and then it led us to this, today's current situation. So with respect to going to Afghanistan, as you said, yes, Osama bin Laden was the target. They killed him, but they should have left at the time, right? Or they should have at least created an infrastructure within the Afghani government and strengthened them and just transfer power without creating this power vacuum. They could have left as such. But quite often what has happened, the bombardment of that amount killed, destroyed a lot of morale. By the way, Taliban has a significant sympathizer within Afghanistan. Okay. We don't have to underestimate that, because what they have seen from the bombardment is that kids have been dying, civilians have been, targeted as well, whether it's called collateral damage or whatnot. People have been, enduring this, as the picture has really clearly depicted. So in that case, they did have that sympathy for them. But at the same time, don't forget that Taliban also had up to 100,000 troops for how many years now? 20 years. They have been fighting the counterinsurgency, and now they became actually basically the winner. Like, this is how it's being framed now. America from Vietnam, the way they lived, now they're talking about how much, yes, they want to live. Yes, people don't have the appetite for war. But again, the way they lived has significant political crisis for Biden administration. No matter the way you put it, now it shows that the decline of power of United States of America, one can say that. And then in this case, the China and Russian ascendancy also can come into, create, hey, this is also a problem that United States, whenever they go to intervene, whenever they use this right to protect discourse, they break countries. Look what happened to Libya. Look what happened to Iran, Iraq. Look what happened to all these countries. They have been intervened in the name of democracy or whatnot. But at the end of the day, what happened? Civil casualty. people have been suffering from that. Now, I don't know how long it takes for those countries to rebuild. So those are the things that you create that vicious circle and devastation, and at the same time, a catastrophe that could take years and years to rebuild. But then when you come to the political section here, they talk about this idea that American value and between the Democrats and the Republicans, they sell that idea of policing the world, neutralizing the threat against America. So this is a very complex aspect. So don't forget, again, the corporate interest behind all these corporate companies are profitable from war, from selling armaments and dealing with all these things. But unfortunately, civilians, casualty, and countries are falling behind, and there's another poverty of reproduction of this mess and whatnot. So this is a major disaster of foreign policy that really needs to be taken into consideration. So I sometimes wonder, do they really take lesson from this kind of debacle they created? And yes, you create and this kind of thing, and now they're going back to Ethiopia and just threatening and using all these things. Couple days ago, the one you looked at, we're really frustrated with the United Nations Security Council, the way they're being chastising and scolding Ethiopia, and the way they are meddling into the internal affairs, and how much they are emboldening the terrorist organization. So this is the way they create first the narration, then they act. When they act in a very devastating, very challenging to even come back as united. So it is very saddening to see the Afghans, now the majority of the people who are going to be suffering more. Now, and then after this, you can ask the question: did they really accomplish what they want? What is what are the outcome after all these things? Now, people are really scared that Taliban are going to go execute a lot of people. More violence could be, even in the horizon. And at the same time, what kind of message do this send politically? In that case, emboldening more extremists. So those are the things that are going to, impact I think when we move forward. I think it's a devastation for Biden, no matter what happened. I know Trump started this peace process negotiating with them, but it is the political crisis for Biden administration and his foreign policy team, I believe.
Now, will they learn from this would be the next question I'm going to pose. Dr. Faisal, well said. Thank you. I just want to remind viewers, family members and Adebabay Media, all family members, please help us share this great conversation. Again, በአማርኛም ለመናገር ይገባናል ብዙዎቻችን ፕሮግራሞችን በአማርኛ ብንሰማቸው የበለጠ ቱንን እናደርጋለን። ይሄ ደግሞ ሁላችንም እንደምናውቀው አሁንም ባለን በተለይ ወቅታዊ ችግር እንዲሁም ኢንጀነራል ካየነውም ደግሞ በዓለም አቀፍ ደረጃ ያሉትን የሀገራችንም ችግር ስለ ሀገራችንም ለመወያየት በእንግሊዝኛ ቋንቋ መናገሩም እንደሚገባ ያው እናንተም ታውቃላችሁ። ስለዚህ ይሄንን ኮንቨርሴሽን እናንተ እንኳን ባትሰሙት ለሌሎች ይረዳሉ ለምትሉት ሼር በማድረግ በሶሻል ሚዲያም ላይ በማስተዋወቅ ትረዱን ዘንድ ከኛ ጋር ተቀጥሉ ዘንድ በትህትና እንጠይቃለን። Going back, Dr. Fissaha, you mentioned a very strong point. Will the United States learn from, like I mentioned, for the past 40 years, I don't think there is a nation that the United States had tried to meddle with and ended good, or it ended in a positive way, both for America and especially for the country that they're meddling with. But going back to our country, to Ethiopia, with what's going on, it's not as if Biden just all of a sudden just woke up in the morning and said, I'm going to pull out of Afghanistan. Like they've been thinking about this since even since Biden was involved with the Obama administration. They've always been talking about this. So this it means they know. There's actually, I don't know if we could show this clip today, but we'll show it next time. There's this ironic, interesting, amazing clip with Hillary Clinton. Literally, like it's almost repentance that they miscalculated with what happened in Libya and also with Afghanistan. She said this about 9 years ago. So this means they know what they're doing, right? So when it comes to Africa and to our beloved country, Ethiopia, do you think American foreign policy in Africa has always been the same as it is? Or is it just changing under the Biden administration right now? I feel like they've always ignored and belittled Africa, like I mentioned, especially after JFK. But now all of a sudden, because of China, they're worried about Africa. Like, how do you see in terms of that? How do you debacle on this? Why they do this to Ethiopia and Africa in general?
Yeah, you're raising a great point. Yeah, but first of all, before we just get to the policy, those things, we need to look at the mindset of how you and I, as a black body, is projected within the white, context. So when I say this, we need to understand how a black person is perceived, or Africa itself is seen from the Western perspective. And at the same time, you need to also ask, where do they get that knowledge? How is that knowledge being constructed in that sense? For the longest period of time, their knowledge, most of them, I believe, their knowledge comes from the media. The way media constructed us, the way African and black people are viewed, is from a deficit lens. When I talk about deficit lens, is always, as you know, for centuries, Africa has been depicted as the poorest, the savage, and this desperately needing help, so those are the things. So the knowledge construction as such, within that, they constructed us in from that deficit lens. In that case, apart from, as you say, JFK, the rest of the presidency of the United States, as you said, for very strange reason, they ignored even Africa, or the way they see is like from that deficit lens. So their education system, their policy also follows that. So in that case, the way they engage with Africa in general is like this aid model. So I got, that's this aid dependent, like Africa should be, they need aid. It's not about economic development and whatnot. So those are the key elements we need to debunk. In that case, that is how this inferior way of looking at us created this hostile foreign policy. So those are the key element in that case that we need to look at that. That's why they constantly undermine the sovereign nation's decision. They constantly, meddle with our own, in that case. So those are the key elements. So for you, the short answer is, it's never changed. For centuries, it has been like that. As you know, a person who controls media controls also the image. So those are the things. At the end of the day, Africa is being depicted as resource. They look at us as resource. Africa is this, so in that case, don't forget that the American oligarchy, the corporate America, as I said, the capitalistic perspective needs resource to just kind of exploit and survive. So those, all these various aspects decide the foreign policy. So that is why you see there is no coherent policy for Africa. You wouldn't find it. It's like, as you say, it's very disheartening to see that. But at the end of the day, it has significant implication in our engagement with the United States, with the rest of the world. So it is time that African leaders, just like as they started at the beginning, back in the 60s, the Pan-African movement, African for Africans idea, they need to work on that. We need to work in that sense, then to deal with other countries on equal foot. So that deficit lens needs to change. That's my perspective, and the policy. And as long as it treats us as a subhuman, it's going to be like that, unfortunately.
Well said, Doctor. Let's bring TPLF in this right now. Why is the Biden administration so determined to bring back, I guess, the bromance between the Blinken, especially with TPLF? Why are they so determined to bring back TPLF, a terrorist group, back in power? Seems like the administration is determined to end a war with a nation, Afghanistan, and start another war, proxy war with Ethiopia. Why are they? It's not as if they paid any sacrifice to have. It's the people that revolted against TPLF after 27 years. The whole process was, even though unfortunately, yes, there's a lot of lives that have been cost. when it's the government within itself that almost reformed, and the new administration in Ethiopia that we've seen has come. And whether we agree or not, there was a democratic election that was intact, and all international communities that came to oversee the election have not encountered any kind of implication that the election was a fraud, was a successful election that happened. So, which means elected by the people. But here, the United States is still almost working day and night until, of course, Afghanistan came and kind of seems abrupt. Why are they so in love with bringing terrorist groups back to power?
It's very interesting. Your question, the way you frame it, like it's not about just interested and just that. It's about geopolitics. A while ago, when you talk about, it is about again trying to control Ethiopia, control the whole of Africa. So TPLF has been the stooge for them, the puppet that has been, basically they implanted it. They as when the Mengistu regime, the Derg regime was just removed because of the, at the time, the TPLF was pretty much brought by the United States of America and implanted this ethnic federalism policy to divide Ethiopia along its linguistic line. So in that case, Americans' foreign policy going back to it is they don't like strong nations, strong nationalistic governments. They don't like strong government that fight for its people. They want a government that they can manipulate, but also there is this idea, a government that's very strong in oppressing its own people, and very weak to be ordered by them. So TPLF was typical, their stooge in that sense. They have been destroying Ethiopia for the longest period of time. So it relates to that aspect. It has nothing to do with democracy. It has nothing to do for rule of law or whatnot. So now they're losing that control. In fact, Jane A. Paul talked about this idea of a white anxiety. Now I think they become anxious. The fact that Dr. Abiy and his team are trying to bring that African sentiment, that the pact of Somalia, Eritrea, and Ethiopia seem to be threatening them. It seem to be very, it's about their interest, as I said. So in that case, once East Africa start uniting, once this grid is completed, then you can see that aid dependency could be removed. But the problem goes way deeper than that. So those are the things we need to really look at such. And it's just, it's so disheartening that they prefer to side with the terrorist organization rather than the people of Ethiopia, unfortunately. So that is the biggest problem that we are dealing with right now.
So from your viewpoint, it's all about control. It's not, you don't think China is involved? Like I feel like sometimes it's a proxy war with Russia and China. Whatever they love, United States have to be against. Whatever they like. And they're the same way, by the way. I'm not saying China or Russia is innocent in this. They're always, trying to fight. It's always a power struggle. Do you think that also has an?
Oh, absolutely. When you look at that, the thing is, Africa, to get to Africa, Ethiopia is the main gateway. To control that. So China's ascendancy, China's foothold in that sense is, as I said a while ago, creating that anxiety on European and American. So in that case, now what they have to do to stop China, even if they have to destroy Ethiopia, they would do it. Because it's a national interest. Remember what Blinken's rhetoric. Whenever our vital interest is being attacked, we won't hesitate to use power and what. The same thing they did to Libya, they would invoke this right to protect whatever discourse they have, and then they can do whatever they want. So those are the biggest thing. The biggest threat right now is China's expansion. So of course, China's policy towards Africa is more of, we're not saying it's the best, but it's better than that aid dependency. They're doing infrastructure, they're doing business with the people, but unfortunately, the Americans seem to be threatened at that. So it is about geopolitics, geostrategic location. Don't forget about the Red Sea again. In that area, Red Sea is one of the hottest place. That's a choke point for world trade. In that sense, the strength of this East Africa, the regional strengths could determine a lot of things. So in that case, there are a lot of geopolitics, geostrategic interest at stake. That is why Ethiopia in particular and Eritrea are facing significant pressure from the European Union, from the United States, as well as from this Western power. It's about control. It's about control. Again, it's about exploitation.
Well said, Dr. Fissa. Again, family, Adebabay Media family, thank you for being with us. እግዚአብሔር ያክብርልን ከኛ ጋር ይሄንን እየተከታተላችሁ ያላችሁ ሁሉ እንዳውም አሁን መላከ ኤዶም ይመስለኛል ከጥቂት ደቂቃዎች በኋላ አብረው ሊጎበኙ ይችላሉ ይሄንን ውይይት አብረን ልንሳተፍ እንችላለን አሁንም I ask all of you to keep sharing this conversation and be with us we're having a really great conversation with Dr. Fissa. Dr. Fissa, do you think now let's talk about solution a little bit. Do you think they will learn from Afghanistan and change their approach with current events? I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like they've been a little lightened after what's going on with Afghanistan. I guess they're more involved in that at this moment or busy with that situation. I don't know. I feel like, but do you think they will change their ways and actually start to talk with the right government of Ethiopia and do the right thing for the people and democracy?
I wish that would be the case. History doesn't tell us that, unfortunately, because their interests seem to be how could I say? Their interest is no matter at what cost, they have to go after their interest. Yes, the Afghanistan situation has completely seemed to be taking their attention, but still, and unfortunately, they seem to be well determined to bring TPLF by any means necessary back to the table. So that's my assessment. But what we should do is, for me, we don't have to look outside the outside, but in the meantime, we need to strengthen our internal cohesion. We need to stand firm, stand strong as we did. Remember, Sahafi Tsaz Aklilu, 60 years ago, he predicted at the world scene, Ethiopia stands alone. Nobody is going to, protect Ethiopia's interests except Ethiopians themselves. Just like that, last time when I was watching Ambassador Taye fuming inside out, being judged left, right, centered. Some small country like Ireland and this Estonia, that country that had been forced came to existence a couple of days ago, like 20 years, and chastising Ethiopia in that sense when he was fighting that back, it shows you the magnitude of the challenge that we're dealing. So it is up to us. We need to wake up. We need to be conscious about it. And we need to have black solidarity all over the world. It doesn't stop in Ethiopia or Eritrea or Somalia for that matter. The exploitation, the recolonization of Africa is real. Africa needs to wake up and start understanding the geopolitics and the control of exploitation. So those are the key elements. Ethiopia at this time is going through a lot of, for me, it's also kind of rebirth after shaking off TPLF's 30 years of tyranny and brutality. People had enough of that. However, as you said a while ago, they are completely oblivious to that. They are continuously delegitimizing the Ethiopian government, as you said, elected 14+ million people went out, elected the prime minister. Whether you like him or not, you have to accept that. Well, that's another story. So, but they still are delegitimizing that government. The second thing is, the idea that all party has to come together, negotiation and this and that. They could not even be able to accept that the government has already designated them as terrorists. So they are looking at Ethiopia, the TPLF, as equally, morally, as well as, equivalent to the Ethiopian government. That process, that dragging Ethiopia's reputation out there, is they are setting that ground for responsibility to protect. That's my suggestion. That's my argument. So those are the things. In our part, what can we do? Africa, yes, should unite in economic, should unite in multiple fronts, should actually have, Africa should be able to have their own individual, just like the European, they need to have their own set of rules and laws where they can come together and decide for themselves. In particular, when it comes to economic integration is so critical. And I love Dr. Abiy's approach now. There is this this idea called what he's using, I just suspect it's called this superordinate goal. When we talk about superordinate goal, it is just a wider goal, a bigger goal of this Africanism, for example. Imagine Ethiopia, the last 20 plus years, TPLF has been, creating this identity politics. Like people are focusing more on that narrow nationalism, Oromo, Tigray, Gurage, Amhara, and this and that. It's because of that poisonous self-proclaimed apartheid policy that conflict has been, ravaging in Ethiopia. Their also miscalculation was that now Ethiopia is the weakest because she's internally divided because of this ethnic policy. Now externally isolated, what America is continuously doing, even to try to isolate it from the African Union that we basically created. So, but Dr. Abiy's approach, one thing I really appreciated a while ago, to bring that Africanism together is really it's not sitting well with them. So when you are actually talking about your identity in that narrow way, now you can even overlook the Ethiopianism and you're going for African. In that case, you talk about regionalism. You talk about this wider picture. In that case, what happens to the West, the ones, the European that usually controls the ins and outs of resources? They don't like that. They hate strong government. That's what I'm telling you. That's the biggest problem. Just for your record, a British company, British companies, every year they just exploit or take $1 trillion worth of African resources from gold, diamond. Now that has to stop now if Africa stand together. So that's the biggest geopolitical interest and exploitation and whatnot. So for us, we need to be conscious. We need to understand what's at stake. We need to educate our kids. We need to fight for Mother Africa. It's not about just Ethiopia or Eritrea. So that's the thing. Now, Dr. Abiy seems to understand as a young, vibrant leader. He's just kind of, going against their neo-colonial discourse and telling them this is not okay. But then now they have to project Ethiopia in a way. Those are the difference between TPLF and the current administration. For me, seem to be this is the crux of the matter. So they want him gone. They would do anything to just kind of get rid of him from the position. Having said this, I'm going to stop here so you can continue.
It's very well said, Doctor. And I like how you always put the stage very strong for me for my next question. Malaka Edom, Miftunyi Barkuኝ, thank you for being with us. ልክ እርሶ እንደሚመጡ ስናገር ወደ 100 ተመልካቾች ጨመረ በደቂቃ ውስጥ እየተመለከቱ ነበር። ዝብት ነው እንዳልል ያው እኔም የአደባባይ ሚዲያ እንትን ስለሆንኩኝ ደስ ይለኛል ቢበዙ ያው ደስ ይለናል። እርሶ ሲኖሩ የበለጠ እንትን ሁሉ ነገር ያምራል። እንዴት ነው ተላክ ሄዶም ፍቱኝ ባርኩ እርሶ ሊድ ምንድነው?
እግዚአብሔር ይመስገን። ጉድ ኢቭኒንግ ብራዘርስ ኤንድ ጉድ ኢቭኒንግ ኤቭሪባዲ። በእንግሊዝኛ መናገር ራሱ በጣም አዲስ ነገር ነው የሚሆንብኝ ወደ አደባባይ ሚዲያ ስመጣ። I'm really enjoying your discussion, your points, and today we are having an English program. እንደምትቀጥሉበት ተስፋ አደርጋለሁ። ምናልባት አንድ ሁለት ነጥቦች ለመጨመር ከመፈለግ ነው ለመግባት የፈለኩት ዲያቆን ኤፍሬም።
እሺ መላክ ሄዶ ይሄድ
መልካም። እንግዲህ ይሄ አሁን ምናልባት ይሄ ቅድም ያሳየሁት አንድ ገላጭ የሆነ ምናልባት እሱን ድጋሚ ማሳየት የምንችል ከሆነ በቦክስ ሪንግ ውስጥ ያለ የሚመስል በኢትዮጵያና በህወሓት መካከል ያለውን ጥሩ ሁኔታ የሚያሳይ ስዕል የሚራ ፍሬሊሞ ስዕል ነው። ምናልባት እሱን ድጋሚ ማሳየት የምንችል ከሆነ እሱን አደርጋለሁ። አሁን ያለውን የኢትዮጵያን ሁኔታ የሚገልጽ ይመስለኛል ዲያቆን ኤፍሬም። እንግዲህ አገራችን ያለችበት ሁኔታና በተለይም ደግሞ የዚህ የውጭውን ዓለም የፖሊሲ ሁኔታ በተመለከተ ጥሩ አድርጎ የሚገልጽ ይመስለኛል። እንግዲህ በዝረራ እንደተሸነፈ የሚያሳይ ነው። ገና አላለቀም ጨዋታው። የተዘረረው እንግዲህ ተነስቷል። ቅድም ያቀረብከው ጥያቄ I think መሰረታዊ ይመስለኛል። ምንድነው what is in it for the West, why they are trying to revive the knockdown TPLF from the Ethiopian political arena? I would like to point the question again to Dr. Fassaha. what is it that they are going to get colliding with the terrorist group that has been terrorizing the whole country for the last 27 years, the ruling junta, and also for the last 40 years as a dominant political force in Ethiopia. What is it that they get by reviving, by putting the oxygen for the dying elitist, apartheid-like, Nazi-like party in Ethiopia? What it is in stake for us as Ethiopians, and also what is that they get by reviving the TPLF into the political arena, Dr. Fassa?
Yeah, as I said, it's for them. It's about gaining control, gaining access to East African resource. Don't forget when they brought TPLF into power, and also the fact that again I like to highlight that this is their project of creating that satellite country where they can control and do whatever they like. So for the last 30 plus years, don't forget that they have been emboldening this organization. I just also like to ask their conscience. If they're about democracy, about rule of law, where were they when TPLF has been massacring and killing hundreds and thousands of people in every corner of Ethiopia? Where were they? Were they when young students have been shot, killed at a gun? Those are the things we need to ask. So this is like, again, they want to control it. They love a very weak government that they can manipulate, that they can use. Sorry to just use and throw, that whenever they want, they can do whatever they want with that government. However, strong enough to control his own people, like just exactly typical TPLF. So they would do whatever for their interest. It doesn't matter how many people die. They don't care as long as their prime interest of profit is being made. So that's why TPLF is willing to be ordered. TPLF is willing to sell his brothers and sisters. TPLF never even, represent even the Tigray people, unfortunately. The Tigrayan people are the one that have been enduring just endless pains and suffering. So the United States or other foreign countries who don't have clear understanding of the context, they try to push that back into the political space of Ethiopia, which is going to be even another catastrophe. And people don't also forget that had TPLF came back to power, the fate of that region would have been, by now, it's more than you can imagine. Ethiopia would have been disintegrated. In that case, remember from Syria when 5 million people have been fleeing European, and they talk about a refugee crisis. They created the refugee, and then they call about a refugee crisis, by the way. So Ethiopia is a heartbeat of that region. Should something like that happen, like Libya, if they just try to create this kind of nonsense, the catastrophe is unimaginable. The magnitude of the challenge, the magnitude of the social crisis, the stability of the regional peace and stability, the global peace and stability is at stake. Ethiopia is this just anchor of peace and stability of Africa. So messing up with that 114 million people is not going to be taken light. So don't forget that other African nations are also, once you kind of destabilize the region, for example, if Ethiopia is being disintegrated or destabilized, the ripple effect would take out Sudan, Kenya. Kenya is a little bit relatively stable. And imagine the amount of ISIS proliferation in that case, in that area of the Al-Shabaab and whatnot. So the whole East Africa could have been completely could disintegrate and can have significant ripple effect that can destabilize the world. So I think they need to reassess their strategy. I think they need to work with the Ethiopian government and weed out this terroristic element and for the sustainable peace and security. Having said this, who wants peace and security in that region? That's a question we need to ask. Do they really want that? Or do they really want us to be controlled and being used and manipulated? And also don't forget about the GERD. The GERD is also one of the biggest geopolitical game changer that Ethiopia is pursuing, irrespective of their this just like this. And I also say, with respect to GERD, also I would love to take this. So it is those convoluted and multi-layered political discourse that are really creating problems. So I think we need to be awakened. We need to realize, and also just kind of, I think we need to fight against these external and internal enemies. By the way, they don't care about Tigray people. They don't care about Ethiopian people. The so-called humanitarian organization, the so-called these NGOs, they are there for themselves. They are there for profits, and they are controlling the people. That's another way people really need to understand. Brothers should not kill each other. We should be able to bounce back from this and kind of mend ourselves and then move forward. Unless and otherwise, it's so hard to survive. So that's my take on this area.
Well said. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to add on this one, well said, Dr. Fissa. And I always debate this question for myself as well. Like, to truly, as an Ethiopian American, I mean, I grew up in the United States, so I'm trying to understand. I remember, by the way, before this whole Ethiopia happened, about even during the Biden administration, I've been a very staunch supporter of the Democratic Party, President Obama, and now Biden. And I remember when seeing CNN about when the debate happened with should the United States be involved in Syria. I remember I used to like fully support with everything. It's like hey, CNN said this, so it must be right. It must be correct. And I remember even debating with one of my friends that Obama's doing the right thing. He should be involved in Syria. So, but now I'm truly like, it's almost I want to repent. Like after I'm literally, I've witnessed New York Times, which I read every single day. Like with Dase Mariam, after Dase Mariam, that's what I read in the morning. Truly, they're actually promoting child soldiers in a positive way. That's when I was truly sickened with the whole Western media and the whole way of they've been handling it, and I felt like betrayed. And as an American citizen, as an American that have been following politics, I've been betrayed with the trust that I had, especially for the Democratic Democratic Party. But when I want to answer why is it that they are so working so hard to bring back TPLF, the only thing I'm left with Dr. What you said, it's not really China or Russia anymore, because China's always been there. They've been with Ethiopia the whole 27 years. They've been doing whatever they want economically in Ethiopia. That's not something new. But now Ethiopia is honestly and truly trying to prosper the right way. And we could always disagree with Dr. Abiy or the new administration in many ways, but at least it's at this moment, it's truly and it's working towards having an independent power nation, and the United States does not want to see that.
No.
Which what it still debackles me is, even if Ethiopia grows, it should not be a threat to the United States. And in fact, it should help it if the Horn of Africa is strong and prosperous or a stable nation. It should be good for the United States. But at the end of the day, it's all ego. They just want to control, and that I also feel like it's the same spirit of the spirit that they had 200 and 400 years ago for African nations.
There you go. Now you're answering your own question. Absolutely.
Colonialism mentality, I think, is what's hitting them.
I have one thing to confess. Really, as you just said, Deacon Ephraim, I have been an ardent supporter of the Democratic Party since even before I came here. So as an Ethiopian American myself, I voted for President Biden and for the Democratic Party. I have been following the CNN and MSNBC since I remember. But now I'm starting to confess that how come I started to watch Fox News, and how come the Fox News and what it says resonating with me? It has been a nightmare. I mean, it is one of the TV stations that I couldn't agree with. But since since couple of months, I'm starting to get what they are saying. I'm still, I'm not blonde still, but I'm still a black person. But I'm starting to get what they are trying to say.
Yeah.
So have we been blinded by the propaganda from the CNN and MSNBC, or is it because we have not been touched by what the political debacles of the Democratic Party? So Deacon Ephraim, so how should the Ethiopian Americans act to the policies of the Democratic Party?
Well, if I may interject, don't blame yourself. Like this is what learning does to us. Whenever you gain, exactly. They say the more you know, the more you don't know. So the perception, the idea, we have this ideal way of America, that rosy picture. As soon as you kind of, when you develop that critical consciousness, when you look at the policy discourse, how it operates, how it destroys you, suddenly you wake up to this reality. It's like, this is called moment of aha, and then you start realizing what's happening, the way you've been wired up. As a brother, the way you grow up, as I said at the beginning of the thing, you also touched base with the colonial discourse. It is, they say a person who controls media controls the image. 400 plus years, as I said a while ago, first, when you and I, the black person, is being constructed from a deficit lens. They have still the unbroken frame of thought of slavery, this dehumanization. You and I are subhumans. In that case, that is how it informs their knowledge. When you look at the news, what do you see? A black person getting killing, a black person robbing, a black person doing all the negative things. But when I talk about police brutality, and I tell when we talk about the first assassination is already that character assassination, already done in your brain. Already the image is already dead. So the actual the police, the person is like enacting that already. So this is how media for 100 plus years depicting Africa as such. That from that negative way of from that negative lens. It's because of that. And then when you look at this CNN and whatnot, the mainstream media, who control them? They are controlled by white supremacists. They're controlled by corporate America. 5 or 6 conglomerate companies control 90% of the world media. So they only tell you what they want you to know. That's the only thing. Now, so those are the critical elements. So, but you need to debunk that. You need to realize, you need to understand that whose knowledge is being produced. When you're a powerful entity, you reproduce your knowledge. For that matter, black history, African American history has been deleted from the United States, but they created this country for 400 years for free labor and whatnot. But you don't see that in the education system. You don't see that in the political space. Why is that? It's about power dynamics. It's about power exploitation. So America, to be blunt, it's basically created on exploitation. It's a capitalistic perspective. So it has to exploit. My naive brother thinks that, we used to think like this and this. No, the policy doesn't work that. I wish they understood that. I wish they knew how we feel, but that's not how it is. Greed, capitalism, corporation, they don't work like that. They work for profit. It doesn't matter if it can turn you into certain dime, they would do it. So those are the critical elements that enforce their policy discourse against Ethiopia, particularly against Africa. That's why we need to wake up. We need to realize this powerful entity called corporate America, and kind of counter. It starts from us, from learning. So moving forward, what do we need to do? Yes, African American, other black community needs to stand up against this misrepresentation of Africa, this kind of thing, and then the way Africa is being mistreated. You tried to touch base a while ago. They're treating them like a child, like children. Why is that? It is because of that misconstrued vision and understanding. So I'm not talking about the general public of America. I'm talking about the few individuals who are controlling power. So we need to be very clear as such, because majority of Americans are very kind-hearted, really great people who really even get so angry with their politicians' decisions and whatnot. So that we need to kind of separate in that sense. again, coming back to there's a lot to talk about from the colonial perspective, but those are the things. So don't blame yourself. I'm glad you're awakened. I'm glad you're just looking at the system. Quite often I talk about racism and sexism. Don't tell me the existence. Tell me the impact. How does it affect you? How does it systematically destroy you? Those are the things. Policies are what they do to us. The foreign policy that Blinken is rhetoric-ing, it's, coming back and forth, saying this and that, is the one that are actually destroying a lot of nations and creating this and really unnecessary war and destruction. So we need to challenge them. We need to kind of uphold our votes and just kind of do our parts. Quite often we need to be due diligent and just put them on the spot with reason and counter back. So those are what we can do, but we need to start collectively. Black solidarity is very, very important.
Yeah, thank you. Just to get into this conversation, I know we've done enough bashing of the Democratic Party, which they deserve, and it's true. And
not enough.
Not enough. But what I want to also remind our viewers, and I've been reading some comments as well, very great points, and which is, I'm going to pose this as a question and kind of as a conversation, because I don't want us to again miscalculate the way politics work in the United States and still fall for the same way we miscalculated about 2 years ago about Biden. If you guys remember, first of all, even in history in general, African American, the whole demographic of African American or African nations tend to vote for Democrats, because again, this could be arguable, and probably if Hewitt was here, she's probably going to stop me and debate this, but arguably, the Democratic Party has a better policy when it comes to African American or our demographic. Or if at least we could agree that they try to get closer to us than would the Republican Party. They try to influence. You see it in their, at least in their political agenda, or you could call it a propaganda. They at least try to have us involved, and I believe that's one of the reasons that a lot of the votes go. But also, if you guys remember with Ethiopia, it's with Trump had said about the GERD had really, really ignited a lot of Ethiopians. And even those people that were going to vote for Trump, I had Ethiopian friends that, no way, I'm not going to vote for Biden, I'm going to vote for Trump, but stayed home after what he said with the GERD. And I remember even using it against them. And unfortunately, they didn't go out to vote, but it's the GERD comment that Trump said. So is it only a Democratic issue, as you say, or should it, like with Dr. Fassad, you've emphasized that, we've talked about this before as well, as Ethiopian Americans in the diaspora, I don't think we've done even, let alone enough, even the portion amount of what we should do to say, hey, we belong in this. They don't even know that we belong in. They don't even see us on their radar. The Ethiopian American vote, they don't know. Like, we're kind of swallowed through first because we probably don't even vote, or we're not involved at all. Is it only a Democratic issue, or should we, as Ethiopian diaspora, Ethiopian Americans, try to work more to be a voice for Ethiopia in the future?
Yep. I agree.
We could still, get rid of, try to work to, at least not destroy, but at least go against Biden in 2 years for the midterm. But what about in the long run?
That's a good question.
Do Republicans have our side? Do they, or is it only one senator or two senators that's just making a speech?
That's true.
Like, what do you think? Is it only Democrats, or what should we do? And this I would like our audience to get into this as well. If you could comment, go ahead, Dr. Sam.
Okay, it's not about Democrat or Republican, but I agree with your sentiment. You really are frustrated because you voted for someone who you think could hold you back, but turn around to be one of, this shows that the American foreign policy has significant problem. That's one thing we need to understand. So coming back to our role, so what should we do? What are we doing? As I'm Canadian American, Canadian Ethiopian. I'm not part of your thing, but my suggestion would be to be part of that decision-making process. You'll be involving in that case actively. You can, as you say, they don't know you exist and whatnot. The problem of us, if I be critical of Ethiopia, quite often, a while ago you tried to talk about Amharic and whatnot, we like to convince ourselves. We have to, we are quite often internalize our problem. We just kind of internally like to talk about. We don't externalize. We don't let the other, the wider community inviting to letting them know what we're dealing with. So people don't understand. We think they know, but they don't, to be honest. Sometimes you need to start from the basics. So those are the things. Active engagement. It starts from all of us. We need to engage actively in the decision-making process, starting from volunteering, being politically active, being that voice for the voiceless. And then in that case, we can have significant impact in the policy making. TPLF, what did they do? 30 years ago, as soon as they have position, they start inserting their own people into the organizations of the United Nations, be it World Health Organization, every place you go to, key NGO, European Union or whatnot, whatever they did, they had people implanted. Today, they are reaping that favoritism. It is not about real political aspect. When you look at what is happening is because of that connection they've created. They know TPLF is the evil. They know that, but because of those connections, it really is impacting Ethiopia. So what I'm saying is we need to engage actively within the political space, within every aspect. It's also on us to kind of fight back and engage other audience. Once they understand, once they realize the magnitude and the challenge we're dealing, I think the race, could follow. So I think we need to also hold responsibility and become voice for our own cause as well.
To jump in here, Deacon Ephraim, one of our viewers, green, yellow, red, I couldn't find the comment. He or she was saying that there are some places that the Ethiopian American voters can really have an influence. For example, Georgia. Deacon Ephraim, you can enlighten us about what the politics in Georgia is. So, is the Republican or the Democratic Party better for Ethiopia? That's a big question that's open for debate. As far as I'm concerned, the Republican, when the Republicans are in the White House, it's always better for Ethiopia. Deacon Ephraim, we can argue about it. It is the Democratic president by the name from Georgia who disowns us, what the Majesty, the Emperor Haile Selassie, paid for the Ethiopian armaments. They couldn't send to Ethiopia at that critical time when the Tsewa'e soldiers invaded almost half of Ethiopia. They were 700 kilometers inside Ethiopia. Harar and Redwa were under their shelling. What did the Democratic president did then? Jimmy Carter. They couldn't send what we have 100% paid for the Ethiopian soldiers. So if you count from that time onwards, the Democratic presidents, they always allied against Ethiopia. So it's always a bad news for when the Democratic presidents are in the White House. You can see what they have been doing to Ethiopia since Biden took office. So, Deacon Ephraim, you can enlighten us. What is the politics in Georgia, for example? We are going to vote the next 2 years, so the Ethiopian Americans can have an impact on the American politics inside the United States. So take time and enlighten us what is the politics in Georgia.
Thank you. So Georgia, as we know, has been a red state for decades. And the only time a Democratic president recently had won Georgia was President Bill Clinton, and he was a very popular president at the time. So that was even a surprise at the time. But even within the demographic, even though there are very strong Democrats there, the Republican side is a very strong rooted red Republican state. It's been very, very difficult for Democrats to win, let alone the presidency, like any position, senator, government, they've held everything. That changed, as we know, in 2020 with wow, how can I forget her name? The governor that she ran for governor. She lost in a very small amount, but her grassroots work, they did a lot of grassroots work, and one of our sisters actually joined us twice in Adebabay media, Hanna, which is an Ethiopian American activist in Georgia, highly involved with the Black Lives Matter movement.
Are you trying to refer to Stacey Abrams or
Stacey Abrams? Yeah, Stacey Abrams from which she did a lot of work, a lot of grassroots work, especially after they lost the governor election in 2018. They did and this didn't happen 2018. They did a 10 years long grassroots work to get to the position they are today, to win. And within this process, especially within the last 2 years, the Ethiopian American vote, and someone could correct me if I'm wrong with this, the amount of votes, it was very close, as we know. It was 14,000 votes more, African American votes more, that had let Biden win the presidency, including the two senators that won from that state. And as we know from what I've heard, and again, it's been a while that I've seen this statistic, we have about 14,000 Ethiopian Americans in Georgia. And 2 years ago, especially, the Ethiopian American vote was very strong. And this goes, I want to shout out to Sister Hanna. She probably might have a different approach still. We might debate us again because she's more Democrat lenient, but her work and the grassroots work, because of especially what Trump had said, had helped Biden with the GERD. A lot of Ethiopian Americans that wouldn't even vote had gone out. Mothers, elders, because of that grassroots work, a lot of Ethiopian Americans had voted. This means the Ethiopian American vote had given Georgia to Biden, which was a significant portion of why he won the presidency. So if this continues again, if Ethiopian Americans honestly and truly work together, I don't think Biden is going to have a second chance. Even if he's not going to run, maybe
no, he is going to be a one-time president.
Even if his vice president is going to run, this will haunt him. I mean, if he doesn't, we have to do two things. First, if we work together, if the Ethiopian American diaspora work together, if we're going to continue sleeping like we are right now, like Sleepy Joe, and I'm sorry for my words, we kind of say Sleepy Joe, but we're actually politically have also been asleep. We haven't been awoke for our own nation, for our own country.
Yep.
We complain a lot, but we're not involved. If we do our job, if we do our homework, like every citizen, and get involved, we could definitely make this whole administration a one-term president. Not only that, in 2022, we could give the Republicans the House back, or especially the House is up for grabs. I don't know about the Senate. Like the Senate is still very equal, but if the job is done, we could definitely punish the Democratic Party for what they've done.
Yeah, so this is an important agenda. I mean, people go out to vote for different reasons, Dr. Fissa, for different reasons. Absolutely. So what is the agenda for Ethiopian Americans to go out and vote is the existence of the Ethiopian nationhood. Mm-hmm. So this is a time for we are in an existential threat as an Ethiopian American. This old nation of 5,000, 6,000 years old young country. This is we have an existential threat from within, from the apartheid-like party called TPLF, which is being supported by the democratic establishment. So, for an Ethiopian American, what is the agenda that kicks us out to go and vote is the perpetuation of Ethiopian nationhood. Mm-hmm. So President Biden, in his 40 years political endeavor, he has been always wrong in his foreign policy. That's not my word. That is from the maverick
John McCain,
senator,
which is also his best friend, by the way.
John McCain, yeah, they've
which is also John McCain, which is also his best friend. So, as an Ethiopian, this is a big agenda that should make us go out and vote in crucial states like Georgia. Dr. Fasa, you can continue.
I agree with you. Apart from that, what Deacon was mentioning was really critical. Like, as you mentioned, the sister, I like to get to know her, because the grassroots level movement, it takes a long time, but it could be very significant. In fact, that could be the reason why Biden was, considering how tight it was. We have been watching your election, obviously. America votes. America, everybody watched from the world, particularly as a Canadian. When you guys get some sort of cough, we just kind of see that's what they say. So we're so attached to your politics. We just were very close to that. So I believe that apart from Democratic or Republican, we need to enlighten ourselves. We need to be involved. We need to be involved, whether we are a Democrat or a Republican. We need to be at the table of making decisions. Whenever that, for example, last time when we're looking at the counseling, the United Nations counseling, UNSC meeting. Imagine if I was there. Imagine if you were there. If you're representing your motherland, or your those are the key elements. In that case, they might make a significant difference. So everybody needs to be active politically and engage, as you said, and also take, for example, why don't you vote Ethiopian American person who really represent the interest of most Ethiopia? Why don't you put that person in the office? So think like that instead of just even voting for another Democrat or Republican, and then so that could be something we need to work, because there are a lot of Ethiopians who have been dejected from the political space, but now realizing, waking up, as you said, we've been sleeping. So now waking up to the reality and say, you know what? If I'm not involving in that case, then my motherland could simply be, because of these reckless decisions, we could end up losing motherland of 1,000, like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years old country by countries that came in existence way, like less than 500. So those are the key elements. In that case, there's a lot of work to be done, and at the same time, we need to actively be, this activist. We need to be actively involved and going to their space and explaining what they're doing is wrong, putting them on the space and telling them. Now in Canada, we're reaching out to a member of parliament. We are educating them. We're telling them what's happening. That's why you see Canadians, they don't come and condone Ethiopian politics. I'm not saying I'm not taking credit, but there are a lot of people who are really working day and night, reaching out to our representative and explaining what exactly happening. Most of them don't understand, because their priority a while ago, remember, it is low. Ethiopia and Africa, it's not their priority. So those are the things. So you need to be priority. You need to be bold enough to get engaged in that sense and become active. There is a lot of things to be done. Coming together is the first thing. Embracing this. And the funny thing is, this conflict, I believe, is a kind of blessing in disguise in a way. Mm-hmm. It kind of made the world realize how much when Ethiopians are being touched, now how they become kind of curl like snake and become so ready for whatever it is. So that's something I noticed. Yes, we have set out from within, as Malcolm X say. I don't want to say it here, but we do have those elements that are lack self-esteem and still buy into this mentally colonized and tried this an external power. But at the same time, we as Ethiopian origin, we need to stick together. We need to fight this magnitude of hostility. We need to let them know this is not okay. Ethiopia is just not a country that you can mess with, because you're messing with black power. You're messing with a country that represented freedom. Ethiopianism is not just a country; it's a spirit of not being okay with injustices. So we need to let them know that you just cannot just have that some wrong policy and then come destroy our country, and then that will be okay. It's not going to be okay. Like going back to Democrats, I'm going to put you out there. Back in the days, black people actually voted for Republican. It's like through time, it seems to shift in that case. As you're absolutely right. When Democrats are in power, Ethiopia seems to have a significant problem. When Trump was completely ignoring us, the people actually fought back and destroyed TPLF. But now this Democrat came and tried to bring them back to the space and create more mess. With Obama itself, I am really, yes, you can admire him and whatnot, but the miscalculation he has done, Africa is saying, as a black person, as a descendant of Kenyan, what he did to Libya, what he did to Africa is unforgivable. Like look at Libya now. Look at taking out Gaddafi in that way. Oh, sorry. It's like the implication it had in Africa now. So those are the things. And in 2016, he came out and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have made my." We don't care. The damage is already done. We don't want tomorrow, Mr. Biden, after they kind of destroyed Ethiopia, to come up and say, "Oh, this." No, that is not the case. They need to correct their hostile, negative policy towards Ethiopia. Strong Ethiopia is great for the world. Strong Ethiopia is East Africa. Strong Africa is better for the world. That's why we need to galvanize, as we always do, African brothers and sisters, and awaken and fight back this looming, basically, neo-colonial discourse and exploitation. That's what I could say.
Deacon Ephraim, I will show this video from the late Senator John McCain, and I will be out of your hairs, guys, and you can continue the discussion.
We're finishing together, right?
Say again?
We're finishing together. Don't leave.
You stay. Don't leave us alone. People are going to go away. They're here for you.
Okay.
Otherwise, everybody else will leave. Now, let that change.
Okay, let's watch what the late Joe McCain said about Joe Biden and also the current Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken.
Madam President, I rise to discuss my opposition to the pending vote concerning Mr. Tony Blinken, who is not only unqualified, but in fact, in my view, one of the worst selections of a very bad lot that this president has chosen. I hope that many of my colleagues will understand that not often do I come to the floor to oppose a nomination of the President of the United States, because I believe that elections have consequences. In this case, this individual has actually been dangerous to America and to the young men and women who are fighting and serving it. Let's just review some of the elements in particular, and Mr. Blinken's role in conceptualizing and furthering it. U.S. foreign policy is in a shambles. It's at best a strategic and at worst anti-strategic. I'll move on to Afghanistan. Mr. Blinken said, quote, "We've been very clear. We've been consistent. The war will be concluded by the end of 2014. We have a timetable, and that timetable will not change." This is why I'm so worried about him being in the position that he's in, because if they stick to that timetable, I am telling my colleagues that we will see the replay of Iraq all over again. We must leave a stabilizing force behind of a few thousand troops, or we will see again what we saw in Iraq. So let's move on to Syria.
That is in a kind of prophetic speech from the late John McCain. He has been loved across the aisle, and if it was not for Obama first term, we would have voted for John McCain. If Obama and John McCain are to be for the presidency this time again, I would vote for John McCain. He's a person of conscience. He's a hero. He's what can I say? He's a man of conscience, really. So how do you see what he said just some years ago about Anthony Blinken and the foreign policy debacle we are having ourselves now? From then,
Dr. Fassad, go ahead.
Dr. Fassad.
I could come back. No worries.
No, yeah, John McCain. Honestly, he's one a senator, politician, a father that has been like not only well respected, but he's a man, from what I've noticed, his legacy starts to like it gains momentum, and he's more respected as time goes because of his service. His service doesn't only start in the Senate floor, but he is a man that went to Vietnam War, was a POW. He suffered for the United States. He was actually captured and tortured. I think for like they captivated him for almost 5 days without food. He's went through a lot for the United States. And I'm not saying, of course, in a lot of ways, his policy was more aligned to President Bush, which again, I mean, we could put looking at it today in retrospect, which is kind of our difference with with you in this term. Even though when we look at it in the lens of what's going on today, yes, what he just said right now, especially with Blinken, it makes sense. It's prophetic. It's amazing. He's right. But what I can't come to terms to again, I understand what Jimmy Carter did to Ethiopia. Again, what I want to challenge everybody is I feel, not only feel, but with what we've seen is both the Democratic and the Republican Party, especially when it comes to African foreign policy, to their approach with Africa, it's been identical since after JFK. They either have ignored it or have done worse to it. For example, again, Libya, unfortunately, I try to avoid it because I really love President Obama, but again, that's he did just a horrible thing to Libya, and being the first African American from African descent president. But what about George W. Bush? TPLF gained power and stability, at least within their own party, not stability for Ethiopia, under George W. Bush, under the name of terrorism, or Ethiopia has been an ally for terrorism. So for 8 years, the Bush administration had given back or ignored what TPLF has been doing with only just writing letters. We are concerned with what's going on in Ethiopia, and that's it. So we shouldn't leave Republicans as if they're innocent when it comes to Africa. We understand we have great senators like...
But it depends on the agenda we are trying to vote on. So about Ethiopia...
Do you think Republican president comes
to if the agenda is a perpetuation of the nationhood of Ethiopia, I prefer a Republican president to a Democratic president. If it's about the economy, I might vote for a Democratic president in the White House. So what is the agenda that we are trying to vote about? If it's about Ethiopia and the continuation of nationhood, the Ethiopian nationhood, I think I prefer a Republican president in the White House than these sellouts by the name Blinken and the gang.
Let me ask Malake Doma, just so I follow up on this one. Do you think if a Republican administration is in power right now, do you think what's going on right now in Ethiopia would be different? Do you think they would align with Ethiopia and PLF?
Absolutely. Look who is in the team, in the Biden team.
What about for 8 years before that? During the Bush administration, it was the same love relationship with TPLF. They were even
not really. I mean, Bush has done a lot about the AIDS help to Africa in general and Ethiopia in particular. Look, this gang, the bunch of anti-Ethiopian elements in the White House. So I cannot vote for a Democratic Party in the White House.
And I hope any
only about the agenda, only about this agenda. If you are talking about the economy in the local economy and other agendas, we might prefer a Democratic Party in the White House. But about Ethiopia and the continuation of this Ethiopian nationhood, I prefer a Democratic Party in the White House. Go ahead.
You mean a Republican Party? You prefer a Republican?
A Republican Party, yes.
My only, like, it's not even a debate. what I just want to emphasize and put forth while we do this, I don't want for people to think, or audience to think, or otherwise prove me wrong, saying that Republican Party will be this amazing or even any different than the Democratic Party, because I have not seen that. We cannot jump from what Jimmy Carter did and then just completely ignore what Bush did, and then again blame
what did Bush do to Ethiopia? What did Bush do, or Reagan do, or what did they do?
First of all, TPLF gained power during, as you know, 92. Who was the president? He was still George Bush. The first president, George Bush, was. What I'm saying is the trend is the same thing.
Yeah.
TPLF gained power during the first Bush Senior, and then for 8 years, they stabilized themselves, and they even they even praised them. Obama did the same thing. I'm not arguing that the Democratic Party. I'm not saying they're good for Ethiopia. What I'm saying is, let us not forget that the Republican Party, at least from the administration wise, have been the same. And what I think our approach should be, let's change this. Let's change both the party and challenge them and punish them. Let's punish and get rid of Biden. I'm all for that. But let us not ignore that. And again, I don't want to step back. I don't want people to step back and say, "Oh, Republicans are good." We're going to go back.
Before you invite Dr. Fesaha, so Ethiopian Americans has not shown what they can do to the American politics, right? So this is politics. This is not religion, right? If it is politics, if it is give and take. So what can the Ethiopian Americans give to the politics here in the USA? So they cannot fear us, because if we don't have no influence to the American politique. But this time, since they touched what should not be touched, since they are gambling with the Ethiopian nationhood, we cannot stand that, right? So in the areas like Georgia, DC Metro, Dallas Metro, and maybe California and Seattle, Washington, we should show what we can do only on one agenda. What is that agenda? That agenda is the continuation of the nationhood of Ethiopia. The Democratic Party has gambled with the continuation of the Ethiopian nationhood, that we cannot let them do that, right? So this is the only agenda I have regarding the Democratic Party. Dr. Fesa, we can continue. Sorry.
I love your discussion. I love you. This is actually great. I'm into that. Before I proceed, may I be allowed to wish condolences for Alemayehu Shete's death, the sudden days of our. So I just want to say I should have started that, but rest in peace. You know, he's one of our icon who always talked about education, motherhood, and all these things. So at this time, I like to wish condolences to the family and fan and Ethiopian people. Rest in peace, and also John McCain. Going back to the late Senator John McCain, rest in peace as well. Who's going to argue with that prediction? Prophetic, as Cassis has mentioned, it's amazing. It looks like some sort of, like a revelation. It's like he knew what so he's a seasoned politician. For me, that he had gained a lot of experience. As you said, he was a man of integrity. Actually, the fact that when he lost, he called Obama immediately. He just kind of acknowledged that showed the human character he had. In that case, he was also concerned because as a military person, he knew when you miscalculate movement like the significant policy problem like that, you end up with like debacle like Afghanistan, like Syria, all this mess. So for me, the debate should also be, instead of being who should we put, Republican or Democrat, and we should be working on what kind of comprehensive foreign policy should the United States of America follow when it comes to Africa and Ethiopia. This is not just only a concern of Ethiopian only. It should be the entire African descent should be asking this negative and hostile policy. So it doesn't matter Democrats come in, it doesn't matter Republican come in, as long as that policy is not coherent, comprehensive, and whatnot, that could have significant implication on us. So those are the things we really need to work hard. Yes, having said this, Democrat at this time, as you said, that the incompetency that has been displayed, the lack of vision, the lack of strategic way of executing this complex process, look where it ends up. And also, as Cassis has been mentioning, indeed, it's going to cost us our motherland if we don't kind of fight back. That reckless way of make it. So, for example, the other day, what they were doing was completely creating a narration for responsibility to protect act, whereby a country is being termed as incompetent. You know, it's like basically they could send a NATO bird, because they say, oh, Ethiopia is starving its own people, genocide being happening, and this and that, but they don't tell you the real story. But at the end of the day, we know that. That's why they want to bring TPLF back. It's because of all these things that they want to do that regime change. So, having said this, it is convoluted. It's American interest, but at the same time, we need to stand strong. That's the thing. At the end of the day, we need to be independent of their aid system. That's the problem. When Dr. Abiy, again coming back to his move away from this dependency, they say, no, you cannot change all these things. But thanks to the veto power from Russia, from China, and at the same time, again, India's being taking that part, we are where we are. But you should be alarmed. You should be very terrified. Look what happened to Libya. Look what happened to other countries. So those are the things that are really at stake when they're gunning against us. So we need to wake up and fight back. Yes, at a grassroots level, political activism is so important, as Cassie is mentioning. But at the same time, you have to send a message. You have to really clearly send a message saying, I'm putting you so and so to change this policy. It's not for one term. It's not 1 second term. It's like, no, it needs to be like that. That's how I see things. I don't think it's easy. I don't think it's just simple, but it requires work. It requires, you need to galvanize churches, mosques, and synagogues everywhere where Ethiopian American and Black Americans exist, and just letting them do that. This is our concern. This is, we want someone from us or from anybody else to represent this interest. So at the end of the day, it's about interest and whatnot. So that's how I see it.
Brothers and sisters, thank you so much. It has been all of our viewers, brothers and sisters, thank you. It's been a great conversation we've been having with Dr. Fissa and then Malaka Edom that had joined us and made it even a greater conversation. These kind of conversations is very, very crucial and important for us to continue. So we hope you keep on supporting us. Again, we understand that a lot of Adebabay Media viewers are Amharic speakers, first Amharic speakers, so we usually don't tune in with the English conversation. But as we all know, it's very, very important to get these this message out, especially to our leaders in the United States with the language they understand. So we thank you, and we also again want to remind you to keep sharing this to your children, to everyone that is concerned and wants to know the truth on the ground about Ethiopia. We will continue these kind of conversations with the new season coming. I believe our Viewers Digest program will move during the weekday around this time, just like today, either on Wednesdays and Fridays. We'll let you know as we move forward. መላክ ሄዶም ዶክተር ፍስሐ ወደ አማርኛ ወደ እናንተ ልመለስና የመጨረሻውን ቃል ወደ እናንተ አዞራለሁ።
Dr. Fissa ትቀጥላለህ. I think we should continue to have this kind of discussions in English and also Amharic bilingual programs every week. I'm sure Dr. Fissa would love to join us, and also others. We have a lot of people who can be part of this discussion.
I'm sorry. Can I call you off? I actually invited one person at very late, and he is just joining us right now. I just see that he is in. He's joined us before, Mr. Tsewa'e. I understand we're almost running out of time. Just I thought at least we could have him for 5 minutes. What do you think, Malakedo?
Sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
So we could also put the stage for future conversations. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Tsewa'e. I know I told you very late, and for joining us. Viewers Digest our guests and our family in Adebabay Media. Mr. Tsewa'e has been with us in one English program before. to debuckle and talk about foreign policy within the United States and Ethiopia. I will let him introduce himself for us, but you guys have known him before. He's very involved in Ethiopian policy. He's even though he's been abroad living in the United States for I believe more than 30 years, he's highly involved and educated and follows what's going on in Ethiopia. Thank you for joining us. I know it's late, but we'll just start almost at least the title, the theme that we're going to talk about in the future. Sir Tawhadi.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I just came back from a vacation in Germany and Iceland, and what I saw there was just an amazing. I went to school in Germany as a very young man, and whether I was aggressive and young and didn't understand a lot of things, I wasn't sure. But it doesn't take a long time in Germany to feel uncomfortable when I was there 40 years ago. Now, fast forward to 2 weeks ago, I couldn't believe that a country could have changed so fast, so different, and the young people are so beautiful, and they're very inclusive. They don't look down on anybody, and in fact, they don't even ask you where you're from. It wasn't a long time. A day will go by without somebody asking you where you're from. And as in they say in German, wo bist du hier oder was machst du hier? What are you doing here? Where did you come from? And you have to answer that all day long. I mean, I'm from South Ethiopian, this and that or the other. But things have changed. So it is my hope that a lot of the attitude of their great-grandfathers is basically gone. And I don't think a whole lot of people will buy into this idea of dominating other people. I hear the young man, Fisaha, talking about neocolonial and all that. But you don't really find a lot of buyers. They're not going to bite into that kind of domination of other people. But we as Ethiopians, we are a very small economy and very insignificant if you see it from the worldwide point of view. We got to be very careful that we accommodate others, especially powerful people, whether it's China or America or Russia. They are very aggressive in their desire to implement their economic policy, and they want to make sure that things will tilt to their benefit. And that's human nature, basically. And so we got to make sure that we be very diplomatic about it and to make sure that the interest of our people and our country is more protected by being diplomatic and by being less aggressive. And if we can take back some of the attitude and aggressive approach, it really doesn't work in a lot of ways anymore for anybody, much less for Ethiopia. Even the United States cannot bring a lot of aggressiveness because they have goofed up and made a lot of mistakes. We just left $80 billion worth of arms behind for one of the most despicable people who forever harassing children and beating up on girls. And so the United States has done a lot of good things. So you can look at Japan and look at Germany, where they have implemented the Marshall Plan and made a significant change in their people's life. Unfortunately, in some of the countries, the process of economic activity haven't taken traction. Some of it due to the local or the people's readiness and unable to absorb a modern economical system, and some of it also through racism or people who are feeling that they don't owe us anything. So it is very critical, really important for us to look out for our people without aggravating or challenging big powers. And I think it can be done. We can navigate and make sure that we don't do things that will exasperate our problem even more. I think Abiy Ahmed will be okay. I think he's going to be successful. I think the people have elected him. United States has no jurisdiction to remove anyone. They try different things to marginalize him and make him look like he's the aggressor, where clearly he was, his army was attacked on the 4th of November. But regardless of whatever they've been saying, you got to keep on telling the truth. And eventually those people that are bringing about some of this accusation against Ethiopia, like Norway, Estonia, and Ireland, have their own historical experiences with colonialism, and they have a tendency to jump up and down for anybody that talks liberation of people. And Tigray Liberation has used this name, but they have used it for looting banks and raping, murder, and poisoning people. And so it's going to take some time, but we got to be very patient, and we don't have to be frustrated or start calling names. So it's very important for us to be calm and make our points and repeat our points again and again instead of aggravating the situation. And I think Abiy is going to be quite okay. He is reasonably successful in bringing about, and the more economic solution he brings to the country, and he brings economic power to bear, I think Ethiopia will move forward. But this Tigray problem is a problem that's been around for maybe 100, 120 years. So it needed something to be done. You can't keep on postponing it to the new generation. And finally, this arrogance has to be dealt with, and Ethiopia has to bear any burden to solve this problem for ourselves. So it's not anybody's responsibility to solve our problem. It's our responsibility. We have to bear the burden. And so if past generations passed it on, that's on them. But we have to make sure that this doesn't go to the next generation. And I think we're going to see the closure of this reasonably quick. And so it takes time. It's something that has taken many, many years, and it's going to take a little bit more time to resolve some of this problem. But Ethiopia is going to be successful regardless, because Ethiopians are hardworking people. They are equitable, they're fair, and they're not into looting and stealing and burning other people's property. They are fair and equitable in their ways they deal with people. They are fair traders when there's a lot less cheating in a place like Ethiopia. That's why it's not really even extremely corrupt country. And that's why we have an institution like TWA, Transworld Airline, was able to become so successful with Ethiopian Airlines. And so if we bear the burden, and if we are calm, and if we are measured and reasonable, I think a lot more people will listen to our side of the story. Thank you.
It's really great to have you, Mr. Malakot Tawahid, to share your wisdom. Again, we're going to have another program like this maybe next week if you could join us. We should, like Malak Edom had said, these conversations are very important to have, especially at this moment, to digest and talk about more. Thank you always for sharing your wisdom, even though it's at a little time that I told you about it and you joined us. Thank you so much. We have already taken so much time from all of you. Let me turn you back to Malak Edom and Dr. Fissa for last words.
Thank you, Ato Malakot Tawahid, for joining us. I saw your pictures in Berlin. That's my city, the city I love in Germany. I've been there for a couple of years. I serve with the church there, and I have a lot of families in Berlin. Whenever I think of Germany, I think of Berlin. It is so very big, modern. And if you ask me what kind of city you want to have in Addis. I always say Berlin, and also what do you like your country to be? I always said Germany. If you are a German and for German origin, you will have no other country to be like. So coming back to our discussion, it's good to see your pictures there, and I would be very happy to have you in this discussion next week, Deacon Ephraim. And Dr. Fessa, maybe you have a lot of some things to say.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to know, Mr. Malak. Sorry. Yeah, you made a good point. In a way, particularly looking at Black Lives Matter, you see the younger generation seem to be more conscious of, what's happening, and the white kids, the black kids sitting together, fighting injustices. So what we are raising is, even though I like to departure a certain point of view, that diplomacy, it's good to be calm or whatnot, but it's also critical that we mention the oppressive structure violently attacking and ready to just choke motherland. It's this colonial mentality that the European states, Eurocentric white institution, that is basically trying to destroy our motherland. So we need to awaken our people's mind and see the structure. People could be nice to you. I'm nice to you. Yes, I'm happy, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, the hostile policy is the one that is destroyed Libya, millions of people, all those things. So that's what we're talking about. In that case, we need to take it to the structural aspects. So those are the key elements that we need to also engage our Black community. Before I depart, I want to say a couple things, Cassis, if you allow me. I like to give assignment for all of us. I've been trying to say these things, but in our area, we're doing that. So this is to create awareness of what's going on in our country. If every one of us, every Ethiopian descent, if you know people next to you, people from African descent, people from Asia and whatnot, you go around and explain what's happening. Do your own assignments, engage them actively, and make them see what is really happening. And enlighten them, give them some sort of small, ideas about what's happening, and then engage them. Then in that case, we get a lot of voice on board with us. And in that case, we can challenge the establishment. Without the establishment is so strong, so deeply rooted, it's so hard to kind of budge from their on colonial interests. So those are the things we need to be unapologetically explain and let our kids understand what they're dealing with. So having said this, thank you so much, and it's been always a pleasure to be here. And yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Fassad. Do you think you could join us next week as well?
Absolutely.
You promise
Absolutely.
I'm trying to do my homework earlier.
Thank you.
Okay. Malakedom, let me ወደ እርሶ ልመልስ።
እሺ የተወዳችሁ አደባባይ ሚዲያ ቤተሰቦች ይህ የእንግሊዝኛ መርሃ ግብራችን ነው። የዛሬው መሪያችን አስተናባሪያችን ዲያቆን ኤፍሬም ስለሺ መገንታ ነው። አቶ መለኮት ተዋሃደ መሀል ላይ ገብተዋል። ዶክተር ፍሳ ያዕቆብ የውይይታችን አካል ነበረ። We'll continue this discussion and we'll mold our English in due time. As you see, I have been looking for words to find in English to express myself, because since I have been way long from using this academic English on main platform. If you ask me of the day-to-day English, supermarket English, I'm good at it, but not the one we use in the media. So Ato Malakot, would be happy to have you in this discussion Wednesday or Friday. We will set up the schedule later. Personally, and also Dr. Fasa, happy to join you in this discussion. ጥሩ ውይይት ነው ያደረግነው። እንግዲህ እንደኔ አመለካከት ከሆነ የዲሞክራቲክ ፓርቲ ኢትዮጵያ ላይ በያዘው ፖሊሲ መቀጣት አለበት ብዬ አምናለሁ። ይሄ ፖለቲካ ነው፣ በአንዱ አጀንዳ ብቻ ነው። በኢኮኖሚ አጀንዳ፣ በሌሎች አጀንዳዎች ሌላ ጉዳይ ሊሆን ይችላል። ግን እንደ ኢትዮጵያዊ አሜሪካዊ እና እዚህ ሀገር ላይ ቮት የማድረግ መብት እንዳለው ሰው የዲሞክራቲክ ፓርቲ መቀጣት አለበት ብለው ከሚያምኑ ሰዎች መካከል ነኝ። ይሄ አደባባይ አቋም አይደለም፣ የግል አቋሜ ነው። የመጨረሻ ማጠቃለያ ነጥቦችን ከዲያቆን ኤፍሬም ሰምተን እናጠቃላለን። ኤፍሬም።
እሺ፣ እግዚአብሔር ይስጥልኝ መላኬዶም። ያው ወደ እርሶ የመለስኩት አብዛኛውን ነገር እኔም ስለጨረስኩ ነው። ያው መላኬዶም እንደገለጡት የእንግሊዝኛ ፕሮግራማችን ለትንሽ ጊዜ ተቋርጦ ነበረ። አሁን ግን በእናንተም ድጋፍ ተጠናክሮ ይቀጥላል በአዲሱ በመንጀምረው አዲስ ዓመት እንዲሁም ደግሞ ሲዘንም ልንለው እንችላለን ያው ከተማሪ በራሱ ስኬጁል ነው ነገሮችን የሚያመቻቸውና አዲሱ ስኬጁላችን የሚሆነው ከህቴም ህይወት ጋርም ተነጋግረን ቢያንስ በዊክዴውን ለመጠቀም እንሞክራለን ወይ ሮብ ወይ አርብ አንዱን ቀን በየሳምንቱ እንደዚህ አይነት ፕሮግራም ለማዘጋጀት ዝግጅት ላይ እንገኛለን ግን ቅድም እንዳልነው የእናንተ ድጋፍ ያስፈልገናል እንደዚህ ያሉ የሀገር ሀብቶች የሀገር ሊቃውንትን እያመጣን እንደዚህ አይነት ጠንካራ የሆኑ የሚያስፈልጉ ውይይቶችን ለመሳተፍ የእናንተ ድጋፍ ስለሚያስፈልገን ይሄ የኔ ቋንቋ አይደለም ብላችሁ ወደ ኋላ እንዳትሄዱ በተተና ይሄን አሳስባለሁ ያው ያለኝ ይሄ ነው እንደገና በድጋሚ ሁላችሁም የቀረባችሁትን ላመሰግን ወዳለው ዶክተር ፍስሐ ባለፈው ነበር ለመጀመሪያ ጊዜ የተዋወቅኩ በአደባባይ ሚዲያ ላይ ስትቀርብ በጣም ደስ ብሎኝ ነበር ሙሉን ፕሮግራም ነበር የተከታተልኩት የዛሬም በጣም ፍሬ ያፈራ ደስ የሚል ውይይት አድርገናል አቶ መለኮት ተዋህደ በእውነት በመጨረሻ ሰዓት ላይ ነበር የነገርኳቸው ባልኳቸው መሰረት መጨረሻ ላይም በቻሉት ሰዓት መጥተዋል አሁን ግን እሳቸው የሚቀጥለውን ፕሮግራማችንን ነው ልክ እንደ መግቢያ ስቴይ ቱንድ አይነት ማስተዋወቂያ የሰሩልን ይሄንን እነዚህን ተላላቅ ሊቃውንት ተላላቅ ምሁራን ይዘን እንቀርባለን ከመላከ ሄዶም ጋር መላከ ሄዶምም እንግዲህ ያው እንደ እንግዳ ሳይሆን እንደ ተጋባዥ ሳይሆን ከኛ ጋር እንደዚሁ እንዲቀጥሉ እንፈልጋለን ያው ይሄን ነው ምለው በርሶ እንጨርስ
ዘርስልን እስካሁን ስለተከታተላችሁ እናመሰግናለን መልካም ምሽት